A man in his 60s just asked to go from part-time to full-time, and instead of promoting him, the company promotes a 22-year-old and 27-year-old. He sues for age discrimination. Does he win? I'm Karen Michael. You're listening to The Job Judge. Welcome to The Job Judge, where we navigate through all those workplace dysfunctions and legal landmines that I'm pretty sure is happening in your organization. I'm Karen Michael, your host of The Job Judge. I've been an employment lawyer for 31 years. I'm a former HR executive, and I wrote the book, Stay Hired, How to Thrive and Survive in the 21st Century Workplace, and I'm in your workplaces every single day. Together at The Job Judge, we are going to make workplaces work because you and all your peers and all your family deserve a safe, civil, and legally compliant workplace. So you're not going to want to miss an episode. Be sure to subscribe, like, follow, comment, share so that you don't miss an episode. And you know that colleague that you work with that probably needs this information? Share it with that person too. Now, a couple ground rules. I can't give legal advice on this podcast. This is just general guidance. Even though I am an employment lawyer, I cannot give legal advice in this setting. And also, some of the topics we talk about on The Job Judge can be triggering. So just a little forewarning about our topics because I do talk about real cases. So let's talk about age discrimination. Did you know that's happening all the time? Have you heard people say, well, you're overqualified? Some people say, well, you're overqualified for your job. What does that exactly mean? The Age Discrimination in Employment Act is a federal discrimination law that prohibits age discrimination or harassment based on age 40 and over. And it applies to any employer that employs 20 or more employees. So that's the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. Let's talk about this recent case. This guy named Rodney Martinez. By the way, if you're in the area up near New Hampshire, the New England area, I'll bet that you've heard of this grocery store called the Market Basket. The Market Basket is a 100-year-old grocery food chain, so you probably heard about it up there. So Rodney Martinez was 59 years old in 2019 when he says he sought a promotion from part-time to full-time employment at his job, the Market Basket, which is this food chain up in New England. When the company's management allegedly made age-related remarks and promoted younger workers, he sued under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. And after a jury trial earlier this year in 2024, he was awarded compensatory and liquidated damages. How much? $134,000. According to the lawsuit, Martinez was hired as a part-time product associate in Manchester, New Hampshire in March of 2012. He was consistently scheduled to work in excess of 36 hours, even though he was characterized as part-time, and had more recently been working 45 hours a week prior to when he was not promoted. Being a full-time employee brings significant advantages, according to the case, including pay, hours, benefits, and bonuses. Martinez alleged that when he filled out his employment application for employment, he indicated he was available for 40-plus hours a week, days, nights, and weekends, and indicated his objective was to obtain full-time retail position. He had over 12 years of retail experience in addition to a master's in education. According to the lawsuit, he was a hardworking employee who never called out sick, received raises, and was never disciplined. Wow, he sounds like a rock star. He sounds like somebody you would absolutely want to promote, somebody that you'd want to keep on board, somebody you'd want to keep happy. My gosh, he could even be management. Sounds like a pretty good employee. I wonder why he's not getting any opportunities. One of the problems is that the company did not have a formal process for promotions and instead implemented an ad hoc and more subjective hiring process. So that's one of the problems. In an organization, you really need a system to promote people. This system of I'm just going to cherry pick who I think would do good at this job, that's not a good system. That creates the potential that people get favoritism, creates the potential for discrimination. If I'm a woman and I only really want to work with women, I'm going to go cherry pick the other women that I want to work with instead of that guy that's sitting over there. Why would I do that? But that's what happens when you don't have a system in place where people can fairly and objectively compete for opportunities within an organization. According to the complaint, quote, supervisors consider employees on their rosters who the supervisor feels may be suitable and interested in full-time, and then communicates with the identified employees about possible promotion. So I kind of look around and go, I wonder who I think would make a good person. And then I go to the person and say, hey, you interested in being promoted? Are you interested in another opportunity? Market Basket's informal and subjective processes, according to the case, for promoting employees creates conditions which substantially increase the likelihood of discriminatory hiring practices. I agree with that. I think that's exactly right. When you don't have a formalized, objective process that everyone can participate in, there is absolutely the potential for not just favoritism, not just pre-selection, but also for discrimination. Market Basket's informal and subjective process has led, the case alleged, to younger employees being selected for promotions to full-time while older employees were passed over. Because of this informal process, Martinez alleged that he was never told about open full-time positions in his own department or other departments in other stores. He alleged that he asked his manager about full-time positions, but a 27-year-old was promoted to full-time instead of him. That 27-year-old, according to the case, was fired a month later. How's that working out for you? Going for that 27-year-old, that young kid who has probably very little experience. Meanwhile, you've got a 59-year-old man here who shows up for work every day, doing his job. Why aren't you promoting him? After the 27-year-old was promoted, Martinez again asked about being promoted to full-time. He felt his manager supported his request. His manager told him that he was an excellent employee and exactly what Market Basket is looking for. That's great. How supportive. But then 2 weeks later, Martinez was informed that the senior managers who needed to interview him had some questions. The first question was, what are you, about 60? Why? Why are you asking that question? That's an irrelevant question. That question is probably what cost them $134,000. The manager allegedly told him, quote, there was a push for young people to promote to managers in the near future. Why? No, stop that. Don't do that. Why are you promoting young managers? Why don't you find the most qualified person? Martinez was allegedly asked if he would agree to step down to part-time status again, quote, when he gets too old. Really? According to the complaint, Martinez was offended by this comment in light of the fact he was healthy. That shouldn't even matter. Let's say he's not healthy. That's a completely stupid question. Martinez often goes to the gym after work, is in excellent shape. Okay. Well, either way, you shouldn't be saying that he should go to part-time status when he gets old. Martinez was then asked if he would help with the truck, even though he was already assisting in this way. He was asked if he had adequate transportation, if he was willing to close Sundays, to which he agreed to all of their demands. And what did they do after that? They hired a lesser tenured 22-year-old was promoted to full-time. Oh, I'm sure that 22-year-old has vast experience in this area over this 59-year-old. 3 years later, Martinez was finally promoted to full-time position by a different set of managers to a position at different stores, receiving a pay increase, and his complaint arises from the period of 2019 to 2022 when he was not promoted and denied pay and benefits. And oh, by the way, that's probably during the COVID period where he was actually going to work when everybody else was sitting at home doing Zoom, but he was going to work so that people could eat. But no, there's no credit for that. Let's promote the 22-year-old. Let's be real. Age discrimination in our workplace is pervasive. How can we make sure that we don't have that happening in our organizations? Number one, have a process for promotions. Have a defined process, a published process. And when there's an opportunity, put it out there. Let any internal person who's interested apply. And then do a fair selection process. Park your bias at the door. Clearly, in this case, it's not just that they said the quiet part out loud. They weren't even trying to hide their bias in this case. What are you, about 60? We're trying to bring in some young folks to be managers, so you're too old. Stop with this, you're overqualified stuff. Now, that's not necessarily what happened in this case, but I hear that all the time. If you get a candidate for employment who's willing to work for the pay that you're offering, and that person happens to have extensive qualifications, lucky you. You're getting a great situation. Oh, well, Karen, this person won't stay very long. How long did that 27-year-old stay? How long do you think your 22-year-old is going to stay? Have you been in the workplaces today? People aren't staying at jobs for 32 years anymore. They're leaving job. If they're there more than 1 year, they're antsy. They're already looking for another opportunity. So don't assume just because somebody is younger that they're going to promote them and rise them up the organization. I had a woman come up to me after a training, and she said, Karen, we've got a lot of older people on my team who are retiring, and our goal for the year is to hire young people that can come into the organization and take over after our retired people leave, and we feel that that's a legitimate business decision. And so is that discriminatory? Yes, it is. In the name of succession planning, you can't go around and not hire older workers. That's just a violation of federal law. You can't justify your way into it. And don't make, this should have to go without saying, but don't make age-related comments. And don't do things that have the appearance of age discrimination. Now, every week on our podcast, we answer a question, and today's At the Job Judge. By the way, if you want me to answer a question for you, if you're in HR, if you're an employee, you got something going on at work, I might answer your question right here on the podcast. So email me at Karen@thejobjudge.net. That's Karen@thejobjudge.net, and I just might answer your question right here on the podcast. This person asked the following question on Reddit. Can I be approved for an accommodation if I have not officially been diagnosed with anything yet? This person says, I'm not diagnosed with anything right now, but I'm in the long process of trying to get a diagnosis. I've been getting full body hives when cold. My office is so cold it happens fairly frequently. Sometimes my hands get so itchy and swollen that it's hard for me to type. Changing the thermostat hasn't helped because I need a much warmer environment. And this person goes on to say that they have not been tested they have not received any diagnosis for why this is happening to them, but it is happening. I'll be the judge of that. In order for you to get a reasonable accommodation for a medical condition, you need to have a medical condition. So under federal law, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, a person is entitled to a reasonable accommodation if that person has an impairment, a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. So in order to qualify under the ADA, you have to have an impairment. With that said, I would hope that your employer would want you to be comfortable in your work environment. No good employer wants an employee coming to work and having hives because the work environment is so untenable. Now, there might be a reason that your work environment is so cold. She talks about how she works in a lab, and there might be a reason for that. But there might also be some other strategies that your employer could employ. So even though you don't have a diagnosed medical condition, perhaps just go to your employer, go to your manager and say, I'm breaking out in hives. This place is so cold. Is it okay if I bring in a heater? Is it okay if I wear certain gloves? Is there something we can do to try and make it so that I can have a work environment where I am safe and healthy? Because this current work environment is not working for you. So you need to do something. So even if you don't get a diagnosis, in an employer that cares about their employees, that has empathy for their employees, hopefully your employer will try to do something to make your workplace work for you. Because currently, getting hives when you go to work, that is certainly not a good work environment. Now, we drop an episode of The Job Judge every single week. You are not going to want to miss an episode, so be sure to comment, like, subscribe, share, follow, so you don't miss an episode of The Job Judge. I'm Karen Michael, and you've been listening to The Job Judge.